dog meat, and it depends on the extent of the connective tissue that they have. So if it's a big,
you have a grinder?
Yeah.
You have a manual grinder?
I have an electric grinder.
Electric grinder.
So the more silver skin that's on it, that will catch in the grinder. So that's something you want to be careful of.
Gotcha.
And I don't have like the most, actually that's pretty bad. I don't have the best grinder. So it's it'll work, but it will not just process things like it's some huge industrial burger maker. It'll cut this up and it'll mix the fat in, but things get stuck. And the more silver skin and tendon and stuff like that comes in there, it just gums up the works, and you don't want to waste an afternoon that was supposed to be made burger and sausage and have it become like just trying to repair another really expensive device.
Right.
So kind of test little bits are okay, because that'll go through. You freeze it up, get it real cold, and then that's pretty much it.
How about a hilarious mistake story?
Which one?
Oh, good. So you have something to select from. No, tell me a story of just making a hilarious mistake in the hunts, with processing, with something.
Processing, I've been very careful because the consequences are ridiculous. Mistake. Last season I went bow hunting.
Yeah.
And I was just walking around and I hadn't seen anything. And I definitely let my guard down. And there was an elk that I saw on this property. It's not elk season, and I didn't have a tag, so it was more of like him and I were just watching each other.
Yeah.
And he knew I was there, but he didn't freak out. And 100 yards, so good enough to get eye contact through the binos. And so I was really not paying attention at that point. It got hot. It was the middle of the day. It's like, well, there's no deer out in the middle of the day, because that's conventional wisdom. So I'm like, I'm just going to put my arrow away and relax, and I just kind of wander around, not really being on guard, and kind of come over a crest, and there's this big old buck within archery distance staring at me. And that was the only deer I saw that last year. Like the only male legal buck that could be taken all year last year, and that was a big whoopsie doodle, because it just turned off the attention for 1 second, and he was right there. And if it was a rifle season, he'd be dead for sure. But since it wasn't, it was archery, and he started hopping away, and as close as he was, like, you just can't chuck an arrow at something without reasonably expecting to have it go down. So it was that was a cataclysmic mistake. The worst one I ever saw was in Texas, where a guy dropped his gun out of his blind, and he decided just to hunt on. He didn't want to go back because it was morning, it was the last day, and he got a deer that was pretty close to his stand, and he shot at it, and his scope had knocked off. So, like, whatever, I don't know how bad it got knocked off, but it was bad enough that he just missed. And it had been several days of just sitting around for that guy in a tree. And he was so mad. And so very, very angry. And that was the worst one that I saw, was just assuming that the scope is off. And I'm very particular about any kind of contact with the rifle, and just trying to make sure that there's no chance of that happening.
Right.
Because even worse than missing entirely, like he did, is missing something and hitting it, and then watching it run off, and then it's going to go... Right. It'll become food for something else, but you don't want to do it that way.
Right.
You want everything to be fast and clean. Let's see. Oh, I dropped my backpack to lighten up the load to go after a set of deer, and I didn't mark where I put it on my GPS because I was too excited. I was too buck happy, and my backpack is camouflage. So... Once the deer had given me the full bail, and they decided they didn't want to spend any time with me, I went back, and then I realized that I had no idea where my stuff was, and I spent the rest of that afternoon and evening panicked kind of wandering around looking, and it had everything. It had my water, had my GPS, so that would get me back to camp. It had all my knives. It had all I had with me was a rifle.
Wow.
And it was hot. It was basically fall in California, so 1,000,000 degrees, super sunny, and just miserable, and no water, no food, no contact, out of cell service, just you're stuck. That wasn't fun. I got lost by going, big mistake. I went hunting with some friends of mine who it turns out are drinky hunters. So lots of booze, maybe 30 beers each. Those guys.
I take it you are not a drinky hunter.
I'm not a drinker at all. So drinky hunting in general, walking around with a gun drunk just sounds like a...
That sounds stupid.
But it's very common.
Would not be a drinky hunter.
Very, very common. Because it's also, this is the boys' getaway for the most people. Like,
right.
most people are looking at this, they're getting out of the house, they're going to get hammered, they're going to shoot a deer, they're having a good time. And these guys are just like that. And one of them told me that he was going to take me to a special part of the mountain where he'd seen deer in the past, and he's been going there for 30 years, so I trusted him. And he wandered off, kind of drunk, and he told me, like, you just sit here for 5 minutes, then come up 100 yards. I'll meet you at that rock. And I remember specifically it sounded just like that. Every word took way too long to come to me. And so I go there. I eventually creep down. I get to the spot where he theoretically was going to meet me, and he's wandered off. And again, I'm lost on a mountain. I have no idea where I am. I don't, I have a backpack now. I have water, but I'm still lost, and that's a horrible feeling of not knowing where you are and realizing that your own ineptness may have just killed you. And so I'm basically yelling help in the middle of the deer woods, which is the worst thing you could do is make noise.
Right.
You don't make noise. You don't go upwind of them. You don't do anything that'll screw up your chances. But so scared, they were just like, help! And they had to come find me. That wasn't great. I didn't feel super stoked on that one.
I bet not.
So there was that. And then...
So now what are we doing?
So now we're making roasts.
Yeah.
So what we cut, one of those pieces back there, the bigger piece, is one of these. And so cut them into smaller pieces. This has a little bit, you see this?
Yeah.
This is what they call bloodshot.
Bloodshot.
So that I would probably carve off, put that into the dogs, and then this piece now becomes smaller than a roast, so it goes into the burger pile. And we just start taking these. Now, one thing is if you are planning on giving it away, cut the silver skin off, because people won't do it. If you're planning on keeping it yourself and opening it up yourself, and you trust yourself, then leaving the silver skin on until you actually cook it will basically act as saran wrap itself. It'll keep the oxygen off the meat, and so that's a fun little trick.
That pro tip.
Pro tip from the amateur. But it does work, but I stole that from an actual pro tip. But yeah, so those, usually it's getting lost. Getting lost, leaving something, always forget something. Was not Mr. Boy Scout like you. Scissors, yes. Getting lost, leaving things that I really needed, batteries, a headlamp. If you have to cut something up at night and you forgot your friggin' headlamp.
That would be the worst. I can imagine that being really freaking frustrating.
It was,
Trying to cut something up by a cell phone light.
Yep. Or a flashlight stuck in your hat. Like a little, if you have a tiny flashlight, you can stick in your hat. It kind of works.
Yes.
But it's just embarrassing because it's like one of those. Obviously, I've got shoes, bullets. I should probably have a headlamp, and don't have that. Don't have game bags. So you're like sticking things on a tree rather than being able to put them anywhere. Obviously not paying attention and letting something get by. That's a problem. but I haven't had too many disastrous mistakes aside from getting lost. I'm a better shot on living things than I am on paper. I'm not really sure where the accuracy comes, but the focus, I think, comes in there. And I also think at ranges, I tend to be a little self-conscious because there's guys who are really good. Right. They really know what they're doing, and so I get a little jumpy when other people are watching me, and that tends to make my shots go all over the paper. But you didn't see a Sharpie anywhere, did you?
Have you always been fairly, like, health-conscious dude?
No.
You look like a fit guy.
Yeah, that started in the fitness part started in the 20s. Like the later 20s. I was pretty unhealthy when I was younger. So elk leg roast. Let me throw the date on. So I know in the future, should I find this, how long it should... And that freezer wrapped up like this should go for at least a year or two. And you could probably get it further. But yeah, the health thing just kicked in. I got... I used to not do anything, and then I went to a gym once, worked out, did some bicep curls, and I couldn't move for like a week. And I realized how embarrassing that was, so I joined up at a gym, and then I started taking Muay Thai, and then I started doing Jiu-Jitsu, and then I started, fighting, and then when I was fighting, I was like, okay, well, gotta find a way to boost performance, and if I can't do it with, basically cheating, then we gotta figure out, like, some kicks here, and do it with food, do it with different kinds of rest, different kinds of tricks, vitamins and stuff like that, whatever I could do. Because by nature, I would love to take steroids. Like the idea of becoming Captain America over,
right.
just juicing up, and all you got to do is go lift. Because I can do that. Every part of me is like, I totally want to do that. Except for
I totally want to take steroids.
I do. I want to look like an action figure.
That's a very honest sentence, my friend.
I'm a small guy. You always want to be like this enormous dude,
right,
and it seems like there's a magic pill out there that'll make me enormous, but knowing that wouldn't work, I just went the more homeopathic route, and that kind of got me to this point. And I don't have the side effects of steroid use, which is good. These are big, obviously.
These are big. That's a big ass roast.
That is. So basically, they treat that like a tri-tip. I'll cook them real slow.
That's Christmas dinner, and we have family over, and 15 people at the table.
There's some embarrassing mistakes. I have made terrible Christmas dinners.
Oh, really?
And I have a tendency to go really ambitious for Christmas, but like my first time making ossobuco was a disaster. Very watery.
Oh,
But you don't have a lot of these things, so there wasn't a chance to practice. And I saved it all up, and I shot 3 deer, so I had enough for the whole family and Melissa's family and everybody together.
Oh no!
And
it was bad.
It was just not great, but that's a disaster. Like if it's not delicious, then like I said, it's such a shame, and you feel real bad. So I did that. I did a big old elk roast like this before. That was just dry. Just didn't really know what I was doing. Kind of smoked it without the preparation. Kind of a dive head first kind of guy.
Right.
And
jump in the net will appear.
That was wrong. So that didn't work. So I've ruined a few, and I still am upset about that. I've never made a good turkey, wild turkey. I've never made anything that tasted good.
It's a bummer.
It's a disastrous animal. It's the coolest animal. It's probably the most fun thing to hunt.
I was going to say, that sounds fun.
They are awesome. And it's, again, talking to animals. You got a little thing. And then, and then you just hear that bastard off them. And he's just screaming from 600 yards away. But it's like he's right there. And that's why they call it spring thunder. Yeah. And it is just cool. And they're a smart, stupid animal. But they're their eyesight. That's the one animal that's it has no sense of smell. The hearing's not the biggest factor. For them, it's all sight.